Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Wiki Weekends, the show where we delve into a wiki that we have picked for a discussion and just have some fun little talk about what we've picked for the day. But I am your host Lucas Holland and I am joined as always by the lovely Karl Smallwood.
I like that I'm lovely. I am lovely. I'm very nice, thank you.
I just remember seeing in the comments the one time where I didn't call you lovely. It's like, why is Karl not lovely this time?
I always call you my illustrious co-host. I like illustrious as a modifier for someone.
That is a good word.
Or preeminent. I like preeminent as well. Preeminent in their field.
What does preeminent mean?
I think it means really good or well known. I'll have to double check now because I've been using that a lot.
I'm not familiar with it.
Having supreme rank, dignity, or importance.
That's a pretty good name for your co-host.
So my preeminent co-host, Lucas, you are supreme in rank and importance. I always feel bad because I call myself the host and you the co-host. And it's I always feel I'm the host, but I'm co-hosted. But you say you're the host and I'm the co-host when you're in charge.
Yes, but we have spent many, many years where you've been the one who's just the host and I'm behind camera. So it's difficult to get out of that mentality sometimes. You autopilot it.
Yeah, but I do consider you to be as an equal partner in this business. We have a 50-50 split on everything Wiki Weekends related.
Of course, yeah, but it is funny when we go into the podcast and we're both on screen. Carl's like, and off camera is Lucas, and I'm like, no, I'm not, for sure.
It's years of verbal tics.
Of course, as I say, you go into autopilot, don't you, at some point? Someone that didn't go into autopilot is the creator of what I am talking about today, Karl.
Where is this going?
Where is this going? Well, Karl, I am talking about, I don't know how familiar you are with it, because this is from slightly before our time. I'm talking about the 1989 video game Prince of Persia.
Okay, so I am familiar with the Prince of Persia series. It's a very famous, iconic series. If you're into gaming at all, you are aware of it. I've not played many of them. I am aware of it's seen as just one of it's the platformer.
I mean, obviously Mario is the platformer, right?
But it's one of the platformers, I should say.
It's kind of in a different sense of it's a very different type. It's, as it listed here, is a cinematic platform game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of one of the forefathers of that kind of platformer.
Yeah, it's a lot older than a lot of people think. Because when you think Prince of Persia, you might think the PS2 era. And it's no, it's been going since those early side-scrolling. It's like Ninja Gaiden.
Mm-hmm.
People they think Ryu Hayabusa from Dead or Alive or Ninja Gaiden Black and Ninja Gaiden 1, 2, and 3 and Razor's Edge. It's no, man, Ryu was there. He was there in 2D going pee 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 pee.
On the NES, just having the most brutal fucking game.
The only problem with these games is that they are relentlessly difficult and nearly inconceivable to beat.
For both of those franchises, back in the day when we were younger, when Ninja Gaiden came out and when Prince of Persia Sands of Time came out, I just thought they were new IPs, new franchises, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At the time that they came out, I was probably about 12 years old and didn't know all of video game history. Prince of Persia is a cinematic platform game developed and published by Broderbund for the Apple II in 1989. All three of those things were before my lifetime. It's one of those it's a very iconic thing. Again, I'm familiar with more of kind of little bits and pieces I've heard about the development of this game rather than the game itself.
I think one of the things I've seen as well is animation-wise, people are probably going to look at it and the clips you're going to put in and think, well, that doesn't look that great. But I do remember seeing all those clips of the animation blowing people's mind of the jump where he does the long run and jump, and you can see all the different points of articulation and the weight and momentum as he carries himself forward.
As far as I'm aware, that was kind of the thing that the game was known and renowned for at the time, is the animation. And it doesn't, as you say, look that impressive when compared to Super Mario Bros. Wonder now, but this was 1989.
That's Joe, what you can do, just put in another game from 1989 as reference, because when it comes to this sort of thing, people most people do have the ability to look back with, the lens of people at the time, but they're looking at, why is that impressive?
It takes place in medieval Persia. Players control an unnamed protagonist who must venture through a series of dungeons to defeat the evil Grand Vizier Jafar.
Okay.
Wonder where Disney got the idea.
Stop!
Saving a princess from an evil Grand Vizier called Jafar, eh? Thing is, though, it's based on 1001 Tales, right? Arabian Nights.
I'm sure
it's not original.
Is. Exactly, yeah. Spoilers, Disney's not original, but neither are a lot of these other things. Like, Disney wasn't picking their plot from the 1989 Apple II video game. It was based off something else.
Like, Arabian Nights, one of my favourite childhood stories. I had the collection when I was in hospital. When I was a kid, my dad would read stories from the 1001 Arabian Nights to me. I've got a huge. That's why I recognise it.
I can't remember the exact depiction that I did as a school play back in the day, where it's the traditional go to the cave and do the open sesame and things like that, and yeah, it's all riffed off the same stuff and just got a different spin on it.
I'm just imagining as a kid you just did a Prince of Persia play and these little kids jumping across. Don't you get the apparatus out and start doing the jumps?
Oh god,
that'd be amazing.
What I do is I get 2 blades, dye my hair black, and start playing nu metal like Warrior Within.
It's a shame because the prince, he's not named, is he? He's just the prince, right? That's what people call him.
I think he's just the Prince of Persia.
Yeah, he's never been named, and also, it didn't need an edgy redesign.
But Carl, I was 14, and I did appreciate the edgy redesign at the time.
I think the only thing I appreciate about one of those, I think there was one of the later Prince of Persia games where they made a platform where you couldn't fail, and if you fell off the edge, you had a helper who just grab you and pull you back up, and went, this is going to be really great for people who don't like the platformer genre. It's but what about people who like platformers?
Yeah, that's
you made a platformer where you can't fail.
You made a Prince of Persia game for people that don't like Prince of Persia. What about the people who do like Prince of Persia?
I remember them saying that, ooh, it's more cinematic, and I think that was the start of the Uncharted curse of hold forward as your character climbs up a mountain with absolutely no danger or risk.
I was about to say there's 2 camps. I think there's 3 camps of people that really like that 2008 Prince of Persia. The people who really like the game that I think it was just after the Forbidden Sands or something like that,
which was a bit more combat heavy, right?
Yeah, and it was a bit more of we're rebooting it to be more like Sands of Time and Warrior Within again. There's also the camp that just think both games are shit. Or not the best. I think they're both very average games, and I finished neither of them.
Isn't there a new one just come out? Presumably that's why you're talking about it. There's the old, it's 2D side-scroller.
So it's a very similar to a Metroid game, a Metroidvania-esque game. And
perfect.
It essentially looks like Prince of Persia got made into a Metroid Dread, and I'm yeah, okay, yeah, this looks really good.
And I saw that, and the prince is hauling so much ass in that trailer. He runs so fast.
As far as I'm aware, you're playing an assistant or advisor or something to the prince. It's you're not the Prince of Persia in that game.
He's probably just been really busy. He's been in a lot of games.
He was busy being in that Sands of Time remake.
They were remaking Sands of Time, weren't they?
Yeah, they were, and they restarted the entire development within, I think it was a month of the release. It was meant to come out that month or something, or the next month, and we're starting again. Because
that's the thing about Prince of Persia. There's been so many Prince of Persia games.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a good 10 games in that series, I want to say.
Not that many, considering it's from the 80s, I guess. While it was kind of pretty dormant video game-wise, we did get Jake Gyllenhaal being the Prince of Persia.
Oh, man.
Have you wondered how you could have found such a treasure?
He's a character. It's he's literally called the Prince of Persia. They hire a fucking white dude to play him.
It's nothing against Jake Gyllenhaal, but come on. He's not a Persian character, is he? He's not a Persian person.
All you need to do is when they announced it on stage of Jake Gyllenhaal is the Prince of Persia. And it's like, no, he's not. Even if he's from like the fake magic Persia in those games.
It's just one of those of like, I always find it funny to bring up just that Prince of Persia movie. It's like, it's in the title. He's the Prince of Persia.
You couldn't hire a Middle Eastern dude to play it. Oh, what's that, Hollywood? You don't hire Middle Eastern actors to play these characters. You just don't give them roles. But now you want to make a movie invoking their culture. Got it. Great, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Anyway, moving on swiftly.
To a more enlightened time, the 80s.
So much like Karateka, I want to say, Mechna's first video game, Prince of Persia used rotoscoping for its fluid and realistic animation. For this process, and this is what I love about it, Mechna used as reference for the character's movements videos of his brother doing acrobatic stunts in white clothes, and then also used swashbuckler films of the time, such as The Adventures of Robin Hood. It's funny because, like, I always heard, like, he used, like, videos of his brother doing, like, acrobatic stunts, and I was like, oh, right, was his brother, like, some sort of acrobat? And then I eventually, like, watched some of those behind-the-scenes videos, and it's like, oh, no, he got, like, his 8-year-old brother, like, clambering up a wall in his back garden.
If it works, it works.
Like, that's the thing, it worked, and it's just funny in my head, I built it up of, like, oh, he must have, like, some professional gymnast brother that he took all this, like, footage from and cribbed and stuff. It's like, no, it's just his, like, little brother up, whatever, just, like, this small child just being like, I guess I can try and jump. And it works, that's the thing, like...
those animations, they look great.
The idea of going to all the effort to, like, take those pieces of footage and then rotoscope them and, figure out keyframes within those poses and those jumps and stuff, it makes the games, as we say, look so much more fluid and well animated than anything else seen at the time.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of... Remember the first Needhog game? Where it's super basic, like the little stick figures, but just the movements are so precise.
Yeah.
It's like, it reminds me almost of that, of less fluid and not as fast, because they could, like, it was limited by the speed of computers at the time, but those of, like, there's only a couple of frames of animation, but the ones that are there are the most necessary ones.
Exactly, yeah. And everything as well is just so clear and concise.
Very easy to tell, there's very clear, like, range of motion and stuff, like, everything is immediately got across to you, the player.
That's the thing, I can't think of any platformers at the time, and even, like, a little bit later, where, like, the character visibly shows, like, actual momentum and, like, uses their arms to stop that momentum and things.
And effort as well, yeah.
Effort as well, yeah, like, the clambering up the wall as they pull themselves up to do, like, a climbing up from a ledge.
Yeah.
It's not just simple. It's like there is a bit of effort involved, and you can see that, like, slow down and stuff.
I think the comparison would be like Tomb Raider, where when the first Tomb Raider game came out, the idea that Lara had to, like, physically mantle up walls and jump and stuff.
Yeah.
Was
and it
similarly
wasn't all
like
just fast, fluid, with very little animation. It was very slow and considered instead.
Yeah. It's like there's a deliberateness to it that is slower, but makes for a more engaging game, because it means that it takes more effort to do.
I am fascinated because, speaking of the Tomb Raider franchise, the original trilogy is getting a remaster, like, next month. And I am fascinated to see people who have not played PS1 games go back and deal with those tank controls.
I can't wait for just all the videos of, like, speed running to get the butler in the fridge. That's going to be a speed run of, like, speed run to get the butler in the fridge. There's going to be so much tech for that.
I love those games, but they, as far as I can remember, did not control well and were, like, very frustrating at times.
It was, and the reason it was frustrating is because it was one of the first games to do that. It
was a pioneer.
Yeah, it pioneered that kind of gameplay, and it worked in a way, but it's not good to go back to.
Yeah, and again, I'm interested to see what modern players think of it, but they are doing it in the great sense of they're going to have, I believe, a modern control system and, like, the old school control system, and then also the ability to toggle between, like, the old graphics and the remastered graphics.
That'll be fun
on the fly. So it's like it's one of those games that it's very useful in terms of game preservation.
It reminds me a little bit of when they released like Pokemon Red. Remember that one? They released like the Pokemon Red on like Nintendo, the Wii or the Wii U, and all the comments like, "How do I get past this tree?"
Oh, yeah, it was on 3DS, I believe, yeah.
Because the game didn't tell people how to get past that tree. And it's like, they were so used to games telling you, tutorializing things. A game that didn't, like, just was unplayable.
Yeah, because Pokemon games and a lot of games back in the day were kind of just like, well, you know, a lot of the time from playing these games is going to be padded out by people just figuring it out and wandering around. It's kind of a interesting thing that I've experienced playing some of the older Zelda games on stream, is that I've found myself just going to guides quite quickly because I don't want to spend all stream just walking around trying to figure it out across this massive overworld. But like, Link to the Past, for example, like I probably could have spent a lot longer a time going around and discovering all of those little bits for myself, but it doesn't make the most entertaining gameplay like when you're trying to get stuff done. It is the way the game was designed for you to just wander, and you know, we don't really get that in many games anymore. It's like, just go figure it out. We're not going to tell you what to do.
Unless you play Dark Souls.
There are experiences, but that was generally a lot more common back in the day.
Most of it was just because they didn't have the computing power to put a tutorial in. The game didn't have room for it. There wasn't room for a tutorial.
Like, look at the original Legend of Zelda, is like, the tutorial was like, it's dangerous to go alone, take a sword. And that was in a cave that was immediately missable.
And most of the stuff that you'd be taught was in a booklet that you'd get with your game that'd say, here's the controls, figure it out. Because they were based on arcade games, and that's what arcade games would teach you to do.
Yeah, and a lot of those games were also designed with Nintendo power in mind, of like, were you going to immediately go buy the magazine with the guide in anyway? It's like, give us a little bit of extra money. The original microtransaction. The game Prince of Persia, of course, going back to it, was a critically acclaimed game, and while not an immediately commercial success, it sold many copies and was ported to a wide range of platforms after the original Apple II release. When you've been around for over 30 years, yeah, you're probably going to get ported quite a lot of times, especially when you're a game that's kind of considered to have some kind of actual impact on the game's, like, industry and direction. You know, it is believed to have been the first cinematic platformer and inspired many games in this subgenre, such as Another World. Its success launched the Prince of Persia franchise, consisting of 2 sequels, Prince of Persia 2, The Shadow and the Flame in 1993.
That's a good name.
That is a good name.
Shadow and that is like a story straight out of like Arabian Nights.
And then just the less interestingly named Prince of Persia 3D in 1999.
I guess every game that went from like 2D to 3D had their third game called 3D.
Or like 64. Every fucking game on the Super Nintendo was just Super something. Can we bring that back for the Switch, please? Give us the Super Switch. Thank you. Man. It's right there. It's right there.
It should have been the Super Switch. Or the Super Wii.
No, the Wii U makes a lot more sense. And then the series had 2 reboots in Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time in 2003 and Prince of Persia in 2008. And that is one thing that I hate about just IP in general, is making something the same name exactly, of like Prince of Persia or God of War, and then you have to be like, well, is it God of War like 2003 or is it God of War 2018?
Yeah, it's why I like the convention of just, it's boring, but give it a number.
It's never failed PlayStation, has it? Of just PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Give it a subtitle, but make sure there's a number in there as well.
Yeah, Prince of Persia 2, The Shadow and the Flame.
Yep.
There's like, it hits both fine, and like it just lets you know that's the second fucking Prince of Persia game.
And if it's a reboot, I guess you've got to call it the same thing again, but
if it's a Final Fantasy game, you've got to make sure it's like Final Fantasy 10-2 Part 3 minus 208
I will never
days.
get over Final Fantasy 10 Part 2. It's such a... At that point, the numerical like designation of Final Fantasy games is so divorced from being an actual numerical sequel. Like Final Fantasy X 2. It's like, what? Is that Final Fantasy 11 or 12?
Yeah, I get it, because it's like the second part of the 10 story, and they want each start of the story to be the next number.
It's like Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. It's like, what?
Yeah.
The fact that in 2024 I'll be playing Final Fantasy VII Part 2 on my PlayStation 5 is so weird. Because if you'd have told my childhood self when I was playing Final Fantasy VII on the PS1 and said, in 20 years' time there'll be a PlayStation 5 and you'll still be playing this game, I'm like, what?
There's a lot to go on with this game, but I mainly wanted it as an excuse to be like, look, the new game looks very good, and I just wanted to talk about the fact that, the animation style was, so cool, and I love the idea that it's like, he didn't fuck around and just cheap it out. It's like, all he could find was his little brother and a video camera, but he used that to, rotoscope animation for a game, and I love those stories of just, figuring out yourself.
I'm also just such a big fan of good-looking sprite art, because while you've been talking, I have found what is widely considered one of the single greatest bits of sprite work in a video game. And it's from Street Fighter 3. Street Fighter 3rd Impact. Specifically, the character Elena and her idle animation. But I'm just going to send you, this is a 40-frame GIF of her special sweep.
Oh, God, that is beautiful.
It's so... And that's just a sprite, and it's just put in any clip of Street Fighter 3rd Strike, their idle animations, because they're all so good.
I love the look of Street Fighter 3. It's so clean and I just think it's one of the greatest looking games to exist, even to this day. It's just that era where, we can make 3D games, but we could also make 2D games look fucking amazing.
I will never... one of the biggest downgrades in all of fighting games is when King of Fighters went from some of the best looking sprites in all of video gaming. Because they were still doing sprites when everyone else was doing 3D, and they went to 3D and just put in a clip of any King of Fighters game, and now put in a clip of the latest one. Keep in mind, folks, the one that's coming on afterwards is later and is supposedly better. This is the next one in the series, and it looks so stiff and lifeless and there's no fluidity to it. There's no impact to anything anyone's doing.
It reminds me as well where Sega think it's an upgrade to look like Superstars instead of Sonic Mania. Mm-hmm. I'm like, are you insane? And it's not that they necessarily think it looks better, it's that they think that children are going to like the 3D sprites more. I get it.
Yeah. Well, they just look so much worse.
It looks like such an uglier game in comparison.
But I am happy that the latest one in the game, or the latest Prince of Persia, has gone back to the 2D thing.
And the new game looks great. Clearly we've recorded this to try and coincide with its release, and I'm really excited for that because it's just the art style looks great, the combat looks great, it's a Metroidvania. Sign me up.
The thing is, there's been so many of those, and when they're good, they're fucking good. So obviously there's Metroid Dread, phenomenal.
Yeah.
There's obviously all the Metroid games. Did you ever play that Striker game? Those 2.5D?
Do you mean Strider?
Strider, sorry.
I got about halfway through. It was fun.
Which was so fun as well. And then you got just how fluid and smooth it was.
And obviously people are screaming Hollow Knight down their cameras right now.
Hollow Knight is another great one. You've got just 2D and sprite work. I guess we've got to mention the King, Metal Slug.
Yeah, and then obviously
some of the best sprite work in the business.
It is roguelite instead, but Dead Cells as well.
Dead Cells is fantastic.
With the Castlevania crossover as well.
Which makes perfect sense, but I think as well Metal Slug might be one of those ones it's you mentioned a roguelike, I'm now thinking, imagine a Metal Slug roguelike.
Oh, that would be cool.
Imagine a Metal Slug roguelike. And do you know I mentioned King of Fighters earlier? Do you know there's a King of Fighters game where they put Metal Slug characters in?
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he's SNK, isn't it?
Yeah, but I didn't know that. I've never been aware of it.
You could play as Theo, and it's yeah!
The true King of Fire. Just come in with a shotgun.
Oh, man. Heavy machine gun. Whenever you mention good sprite work, people always mention...
Rocket launcher.
No, it's not. It's Lucas. It's rocket launcher. Whenever you mention sprite work, people always post that one gif of the crab tank from Metal Slug. Which isn't even the best looking sprite in that game.
Just all of Metal Slug's sprite work looks so good.
I still think the best sprite is when you get turned into a mummy and your crouch animation is all the wrappings just disintegrate. It's such a simple thing, but it just looks so good.
I'm looking forward to Metal Slug Tactics just to look at it.
Wait, is there a new one coming out?
There's a tactics game coming
Never
out.
look, Metal Slug Tactics. Oh my god, that looks so good. Just the screenshot of like the core 4. Like, goddamn, like those characters are awesome.
Just looking forward to playing this new Prince of Persia game. I hope that this can kind of be one kind of part of the Prince of Persia franchise going forward, where they just give us some like Metroid Dread likes. I'm totally down for that.
Yeah, I'm down for like more just kick-ass 2D games. And I guess before we go, Lucas, we've got like just any favourite just sprite animations or sprite games? Because I've mentioned some Metal Slug stuff, so you've got to put in the clip of my favourite of just the guy who goes so hard saying "Rocket Launcher." I love every time. It cracks me up every fucking time.
Rocket launcher.
One that I just think is really kind of delightful is the Legend of Zelda like crossover with Crypto the Necrodancer.
Oh,
Cadence
that's really
of Hyrule.
Because I like just seeing Link just bounce. Well, it's not Link, it's Cadence dressed like Link, just the little bounce. Like Crypto the Necrodancer is so like, you know, charming.
Yeah, and like you do play as the Zelda characters in that game as well. And just being able to kind of have that really lovely HD-ified like Zelda sprite work everywhere. It's like I'm such a sucker for that because I love so much of the Zelda sprite work. It's like it's so nice to see in that nice crisp HD.
I've got to give some shout outs like the Final Fantasy, like those original like sprite work ones, because I played so many of them. Because just they're not, people look at them and go, these look stupid. It's like, yes, but there's charm to them. Like
There's a lot of charm to them, yeah.
Like in Final Fantasy 2 when Joseph stops the boulder and you just see his sprite sliding away this boulder and it's like, then his little facial like portrait comes up and goes, "Run, I can't hold the rock," and then he dies like, "No!"
It's like I really like those Final Fantasy games aesthetically. I've not played through any of the older ones yet.
Again,
Plan to at some point.
There's a charm to them.
But like I like the fact that we got the pixel remaster, but the fact that like we haven't got those and Chrono Trigger in like that HD 2D art style yet, I'm like, this is a crime against just all of gaming.
Also, shout outs to Pokemon. I remember when me and you played through like Soul Silver, and just those Pokemon sprites that only have like, they have more charm with 2 frames of animation than Scarlet and Violet
any
has.
of the 3D games.
Like just the one of Hitmonchan coming in and his idle animation, he just throws 2 jabs. Mm-hmm. Just Hitmonchan throwing 2 frames, and like his hand going out, his hand coming back in with a bit of blur on it, is the best like Hitmonchan has ever looked.
Yeah, like the Black and White 2, the battles in those games are the best Pokemon has looked.
Yep. And I'm guessing you're going to mention the Scott Pilgrim game, because that's like really good, isn't it? 'Cause that's like pixel inspired, and it has just like the level of presentation I've seen in that is like phenomenal.
Yeah, that's also a really good pick, yeah. It's a really nice looking game that really nicely recreates the actual comic book art style of it. Or like, I guess the graphic novel, technically, art style of it. There's so many like indie games and stuff that look fantastic, like Shovel Knight and Celeste are a good couple of shouts. Like
They are.
I'm just such a sucker for it.
Especially when it's done well. Like it's a bit overdone, but just when it's done well, it's hard to top.
There are a lot of like indie games, especially that go for that aesthetic, that look horrible. But when it's done well,
yeah, it's like when sprites are done well, they just look so fucking good and so clean. When the animations are nice and smooth, like I said, those buttery smooth animations like you get in like a King of Fighters game. I
can't to this day understand why King of Fighters looks the way it does now.
Why did they because that's what they were known for.
Other than making it for a cheaper amount, like making development cheaper. Other than that, I can't understand.
But I think they were known for that, though. They were known as the guys who had the best looking sprites in video games. They were the only fighting game that still did it. That was their niche, and they got rid of it to look like Street Fighter 4.
Anyway, we could rant about this for a long ass time. Thank you all for watching, and I hope everyone just lets us know kind of what your favourite sprite work-based game is so that we can go and look at a bunch of cool-looking games.
Yeah, just like send us on social media your favourite sprites. Let us know.
Let's do it so Carl can block it.
Yeah. I don't block people when they do shit. When people say you should make a video about this, it's like, I don't... No! I want to talk about stuff I like.
It's like, send us cool fucking sprite work and not like, hey, here's a video suggestion. But anyway... Thank you all for watching, and have a lovely day.
Yes.